Over the past 2 months, I've logged 350 plus miles on this Otso Warakin, including an overnighter and several longer adventure day rides. And while I usually gravitate towards bikes that come with stock, say 2.2-inch tires, I found myself consistently reaching for the Warakin this fall. Let's dive into it and find out why. So as many of you have seen on this channel and really at BIKEPACKING.com as a whole, dedicated gravel bikes are kind of few and far between. That's not to say that we don't like them, but we tend to gravitate, as I was mentioning, towards bikes with bigger tires for added capability, comfort, and versatility. That said, I'd be remiss not to mention that each time I've reviewed a gravel bike for this channel, I've come away enlightened. So I think it's important to talk about who I am to better understand this. So it doesn't come up in every video, so maybe this is a good reminder, but I started my bike career, let's call it, as a racer, or at least that's when my love of cycling truly took off. I was never the fastest single-day racer, but I found my specialty was in multi-day events like, say, the Tour Divide and Colorado Trail Race. So these events required a steady effort over long periods of time, and having a bike that had some efficiency certainly made things easier. So old habits die hard, right? And I don't think I'll ever stop prioritizing efficiency in a bike. And while I've come to realize efficiency isn't everything, and my perception has certainly evolved, especially while testing bikes for this channel, there isn't a ride I go on where I actually don't think about how well a bike pedals and how efficient it feels. So to me, an efficient bike is just one of many important characteristics. Others include comfort, capability, and feature set. But when it comes to bike packing or long distance rides, I always circle back to the word efficiency. Of course, efficiency is also influenced by the terrain we ride, and that's where, well, the Otso Warakin comes in. But just how efficient is a gravel bike, especially on mixed terrain? Let's dive into that and much more. But before we get any further, I do want to take a quick moment to let you all know that this video is supported in part by OneUp USA. OneUp combines superior materials and craftsmanship with a keen understanding of what you need to get your bike and gear to your next adventure. Whether you're an enthusiast, weekend warrior, or pro cyclist, the result is simple, durable, no hassle racks and accessories that you can trust will last for the long haul. So to learn a little bit more about their Made in the USA range of bike racks and accessories, you click on the card right here, or else follow the link in the description below. All right, so despite me using gravel as a definer of this bike, the Steel Warakin is actually coined as an all-road bike by Otso. In fact, it is their most all-road style metal bike Otso offers. It features clearance for up to 650B and 700 by 50 millimeter tires, though this is dictated by the tuning chip dropout system. All right, so the bike does fit 50 millimeter tires in the rear and middle tuning chip position, but it won't clear those tires in the shortest 420 millimeter chainstay setting, so the shortest position. That all said, these are more of guidelines than hard rules. I tested the bike with 55 millimeter Fleecer Ridge tires in that 440 millimeter chain stay position or all the way back, and I never ran into any issues, although I also didn't run into any death mud to test that clearance. Now, I might have gotten ahead of myself here with the tuning chip, and you're probably wondering, what is that? Well, the tuning chip is a standout feature Otso offers on all of their bikes, except their new slacked out Hoot hardtail. Essentially, it's an adjustable dropout that allows you to position the rear axle all the way forward or all the way back, which is 20 millimeter chainstay difference. However, you can bridge that gap by purchasing a middle position, which on the Warakin gives you a 430 millimeter chainstay and a 1033 millimeter overall wheelbase. So Otso also offers sliding insert chips for even more versatility, enabling single speed setups. So I am 5'9.5", roughly 32-inch inseam, and I have slightly longer arms than height, so plus ape index. And I found that the 56 centimeter frame actually fit me well. So the standover is definitely a bit tight, as expected for this style of bike. but I'd say it's a sacrifice I would take for added frame triangle space. So the 383 millimeter reach didn't actually seem too long on paper, but then paired with the 80 millimeter stem, I actually found myself more hunched over than I usually do on bikes that I test for this channel. I considered switching to a shorter stem or even just flipping the -7 to the +7, but I ended up just wanting to embrace the fit, and I was able to actually adapt pretty quickly to this reach. Real reach, let's call it. We'll attribute some of that to, well, the relatively high 596 millimeter stack compared to other gravel bikes I've tested, and the combination equaled a comfortably aggressive position, if there's such a thing. But it worked. So a growing trend in bike design is size-specific geometry, and Otso has certainly embraced that with 6 different sizes of the Warakin. So my 56 centimeter frame came with a 71.5 degree head tube angle and a 73 degree seat tube angle in the middle tuning chip position. So these angles certainly shift slightly depending on the tuning chip's position. For instance, in the long or the 440 millimeter chainstay position, the head tube angle slackens to 71.25 degrees. So the tuning chip also adjusts the bottom bracket height, which in general is higher on the Warakin compared to other in its category. So the bottom bracket drop starts at 68 millimeters in that forward position, increases to 70 millimeters in the middle position, finally reaches 72 millimeters in the rear or the 440 millimeter chainstay position. So I ended up testing the bike in both the rear and middle positions, splitting my time roughly evenly, and honestly, I never really felt the difference in that 2 millimeter bottom bracket height. So finally, the biggest change in the Warakin from the original iteration is its suspension corrected design. So the bike now comes with a 47 millimeter offset lithic carbon fork built around a 420 millimeter axle to crown. So this means that you can easily swap in something similar as suspension fork like the Cane Creek Invert or the RockShox Rudy. That's not to say other options won't work, but using a fork with significantly different dimensions, bigger axle to crown, longer axle to crown, could alter the bike's feel, making it longer, slacker, and higher than intended. So my first ride on the Warakin was a road ride up in Colorado National Monument, just outside of Grand Junction. So I was on a press trip with DT Swiss, and I actually didn't have much of a choice, despite my general dislike for road rides. That said, pavement provided a actually pretty good warm-up for a new-to-me bike. So initially the fit felt a bit long, as I was mentioning, but as the ride kind of progressed, I realized it worked well within the all-road category. So as we started climbing, I started testing its capabilities with a solid effort here and there on steeper sections. To my surprise, the bike felt very responsive and, well, impressively efficient when I pushed it harder. So the descent, however, was another story. As we turned around to head downhill, I quickly realized that, well, this bike wasn't quite like the other bikes I've tested. Steep head tube angles, short wheelbase kind of left me feeling, well, a bit timid. Trying to keep up with locals on windy roads wasn't easy, and, well, bombing down at over 40 miles an hour on a new bike isn't something I'd recommend. Thankfully, I got through that. But the next 2 days certainly shifted focus, and we loaded our bikes up and hit dirt. All right, so on those rides, the Warakin's 4130 custom butted steel frame really shined. It had a nice balanced feel, not overly flexy, but with just enough give to offer that compliance that you would hope for in a steel frame. This responsiveness, even in the longer 440 millimeter chainstay position, made it easy to punch up short, steep climbs and maintained a good cadence on sustained pitches. And while there was a noticeable quickness gain when I cut down to that 430 millimeter position halfway through my test period, I think I actually felt it more in the stability at speeds and descending. As I continued testing the Warakin a little bit closer to home in Gunnison here, with the leaves nearly gone and the snow beginning to fall, I found that the bike really encouraged me to push further and kind of explore longer routes. Rides I certainly might skip on, say, a drop bar mountain bike or a hardtail. That said, those bikes may have been better suited in certain situations on those rides, particularly, say, on rough, single track, highly variable terrain, or loose conditions where say, larger volume tires would have offered a little bit more predictability and control. But to be fair, that's certainly not what the Warakin is designed for. It's built to transition seamlessly from pavement to gravel to simple two-track and back to gravel, not to tackle gnarly backcountry trails or the snowy off-camber roads I occasionally found myself on. Now, that's not to say it couldn't handle those conditions. I managed, but I was definitely trailing behind my friends when the going got rough. But as one does, you adapt, right? Descending became more comfortable as I got used to the bike. That said, with the Warakin, it's certainly more about picking your lines and avoiding obstacles than charging through rock gardens. However, swapping to those 55mm Fleecer Ridge tires instantly boosted my confidence. Rocks felt smaller, descents were faster, and overall comfort improved. Efficiency on descents also increased, though it did come at a cost. Climbing performance, especially on pavement and pretty relatively smooth gravel, took a noticeable hit with the bigger tires. The bike just kind of felt a little bit more, I'd say, sluggish on climbs. Overall, the Warakin isn't the perfect bike for every scenario, but within its intended environment, it excels. It's efficient, versatile, and a joy to ride where it's meant to be ridden. All right, so Otso has done a very good job of designing adventure-focused frames, and, well, the Warakin is no exception. It offers plenty of features that make it a great bikepacking rig, while also being versatile enough to function as, say, an everyday commuter. With rear rack and fender mounts, it's easy to outfit for either purpose. The frame is loaded with additional mounting points, including 3-pack mounts on the fork, mounts on the underneath side of the down tube here, and 2 mounts inside the main triangle. There's plenty of room for 2 bottles and, say, a half frame bag, but it also makes an excellent candidate for a gigantic custom frame bag, even on this 56cm frame. Having more weight, obviously, inside the frame always results in a more balanced bike, so that's what I always recommend. When loaded, the Warakin tube set offered just enough flex to take the edge off, providing added comfort over those washboards and rough stretches. And at the same time, it definitely retained that kind of snappy characteristic you'd expect from a bike of this nature. Not a steel bike, but just this type of geometry. The carbon fork also kind of contributes to this balance, enhancing the ride quality in both loaded and unloaded setups. So one of the standout features of buying a bike from Otso is, well, their custom builder. It allows you to fine-tune your bike and your build based on what matters most to you, like chainring size, crank arm, and stem lengths, and handlebar width. And while I'm not going to dive into every component on this bike, there are a few key components worth highlighting. So for starters here, I've really enjoyed this, well, I think it's rather new, the newer GRX 1x12 drivetrain. It's the second bike that I've actually used it on this year, and it just works, plain and simple. It delivers smooth shifting, and the hoods are super comfortable, and the flat mount brakes performed well, actually better than the ones I tested on the Esker Lorax. So the 40-tooth wolf tooth chainring paired with a 1051 XT cassette provided ample range for typical gravel riding, though some might wish for a smaller gear than the 4051 on steep climbs. However, one persistent issue I've noticed with Shimano levers is the amount that you need to actually push the lever in to shift. It's actually starting to put some strain on my wrist, something I'm finding harder to deal with as I get older. All right, so my test bike actually came with these DT Swiss GR1600 spline wheels, as it was sent to DT Swiss in Grand Junction for a press trip. And while the stock build, however, does come with Sunringle G30 Expert wheels, Otso probably might consider DT Swiss upgrade option in the future. All right, so talking about these tires, these are the Schwalbe G1 all-arounds in 45mm width, and they were less than inspiring. They rolled actually extremely well on smooth surfaces, but felt unpredictable. Well, perhaps too predictable on loose over hard terrain. I could count on them slipping out on really tight turns. So in hindsight here, I should have just swapped out these tires right away for a, say, faster rolling 50mm tire, as I do think it likely would have made the chunk feel much more manageable on this bike. So finally, the bike was equipped with this lithic corundum 44 centimeter handlebar, and between using this bar on this bike and then some narrower bars on the Santa Cruz Stigmata last year, both with rather minimal flare, I've actually started to kind of rethink my love for ultra wide flared out bars. This bar, or even say a 46 centimeter bar, would certainly hit the sweet spot for this particular bike and certainly feel a little bit more proportional on a gravel bike. So a few things that I would have loved to see on the Warakin. Well, a dropper post. I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. A dropper belongs on every single bike, especially with how affordable they've become. It's a small price to pay for that added capability and confidence. It should just be stock. Let's make them stock. I also wish I had the chance to try this bike with the Cane Creek invert fork that's sitting right over there, but time didn't allow for it, so I think I would have added that, and it would have added another level of comfort and an overall better riding experience. The Warakin is truly a bike of many uses. If you're a steel is real kind of person, but still kind of want to sign up for a gravel race or prioritize efficiency like I do, this bike certainly fits the bill. If your bikepacking adventures mostly stick to gravel roads with some pavement mixed in, it's an excellent tool for the job. And if you're looking to build your next commuter to get to and from work, its relatively affordable price point and custom build options make it a strong contender. Now, I'm sure some folks will ask how it compares to other bikes I've tested. And I'll be honest, I still tend to prefer bikes with bigger tire volume, slacker geometries, and more playful feel for varied terrain. That said, I also value efficiency, and this bike certainly delivers on that front. The Warakin got me off traditional routes and into some terrain I had never explored living in this county for 15 years. But so did the Ouroboros and the Santa Cruz Stigmata, but yeah, those bikes aren't steel. While there were moments where I got absolutely rattled on some super rough roads, the Warakin got me to those roads faster than other bikes might have. It's a balancing act here. In some situations, it was the perfect tool for the job, and in others, it left me wanting something much different. But that's the charm of the Warakin. It's adaptable, efficient, and encourages exploration, even if it means being underbiked from time to time. So the steel Warakin frame set starts at $1,400 USD. The GRX 1x11 build starts at $2,500 USD, and this version starts at $2,800 USD and comes in at 23.4 pounds with a bunch of dirt cake to do it. In my eyes, that's a very approachable price point, and while the titanium version might offer an even greater sense of responsiveness and urgency, it's certainly hard to beat the value of the steel version. So, what do you all think about the Warakin? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like what you saw in this video and want to see a little bit more like it, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And if you want to help support this YouTube channel, everything we're doing at BIKEPACKING.com, you can do so by signing up for the Bikepacking Collective. The Collective offers a lot of awesome perks, including industry discounts, monthly giveaways, and the twice yearly Bikepacking Journal. So for more details, you can click on the card in the top right corner, or else follow the link in the description below. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, pedal further.